The Pokemon Champions metagame is shifting rapidly. Since it is so much faster to build and tweak teams now, it is easier than ever to punish powerful strategies, or discover new ones. The biggest rising star in the game right now would have to be Aerodactyl. This is a Pokemon that initially was used as an interesting alternative to staple Tailwind users like Whimsicott and Talonflame. But as time has gone on, Aerodactyl has proven to perhaps be even more effective than these two, and the most desirable of all Tailwind users in the metagame. Aerodactyl is incredibly effective in Pokemon Champions Doubles for a few different reasons. While Aerodactyl does not have priority Tailwind like Whimsicott or Talonflame do, it doesn't really need priority on Tailwind when its speed is so high. With 130 base speed, Aerodactyl easily outruns most Pokemon in the game, and is probably going to set Tailwind first much of the time. And beyond just the utility of setting Tailwind, Aerodactyl is incredibly effective in other areas. Aerodactyl's typing is kind of amazing offensively. As a rock type, it has bonus stab damage on Rock Slide, one of the most powerful doubles moves. This is a spread move that hits both opponents, and has a 30% flinch chance on both of them. This is extremely good, especially in a world with many prominent rock-weak Pokemon like Mega Charizard Y, Incineroar, Torkoal, etc. Aerodactyl also has the move Dual Wing Beat. Flying is an incredible offensive type, and Dual Wing Beat is especially useful. This is a 40 power physical attack that hits twice, and hitting twice is crucial because it's able to break Focus Sash. Focus Sash is a prominent item in doubles that shields you from a one-hit KO if you're at full health, leaving you on exactly 1 HP, but if you get hit by multiple attacks, you can bypass the Focus Sash. This is incredible because Aerodactyl can outrun Sneasler, threaten it with a super effective attack that easily one-hit KOs, and also cover the possibility of Focus Sash Sneasler, since it's a 2-hit attack. Dual Wing Beat is also useful against Whimsicott, who commonly carries a Focus Sash too, and is weak to flying. And flying hits plenty of other useful things like Sinistcha for super effective damage, Mega Meganium for super effective damage, and more. The rock typing also means you are immune to Sandstorm damage, which makes your own Focus Sash more effective. Other Focus Sash users are vulnerable to Sandstorm, because even if they survive the hit and live on 1 HP, the Sandstorm damage will KO them and deal that last little bit of HP. But if you're a rock type, you are immune to the Sandstorm damage and aren't worried about that at all. That's another benefit to Aerodactyl's typing. The sand immunity and excellent offensive stab combination are really appreciated here, and if things weren't auspicious enough for Aerodactyl already, it also has a really good ability for the current metagame, the ability Unnerve. This is often an unexciting ability. All it does is prevent the opposing Pokemon from eating berries. Doesn't sound that amazing, but this right now is kind of the berry metagame. There is a limited pool of items in Pokemon Champions, with staples like Assault Vest, Choice Specs, Choice Band, Life Orb, etc. just not being present at all. However, all of the berries are in the game, and the berries are extremely common right now. Type Resist berries, Citrus Berry, Lum Berry, all popular, so completely denying the enemy from eating berries is actually more valuable than ever, perhaps, in this very berry-centric metagame. So Aerodactyl is just perfectly suited to thrive in this particular doubles format. And this is the kind of thing that it makes sense would be a rising trend rather than being initially good, because this is sort of a response to everything else that has developed. With Charizard Y rising to prominence and Sneasler rising to prominence, the value of a guy like Aerodactyl with Stab, Rock Slide, and Dual Wing Beat as well as Tailwind was revealed, and Unnerve was the icing on the cake. Now don't get me wrong, Whimsicott and Talonflame are still very powerful and popular, but I actually think Aerodactyl is the best Tailwind setter in the format right now, at least as things are presently. The metagame is already starting to adapt to Aerodactyl too. These adaptations are happening quickly. We've seen a rise of Dragapult, because Dragapult is one of the few things actually faster than Aerodactyl and able to punish it a little bit. You can Thunder Wave Aerodactyl with Dragapult or Will-O-Wisp it, and Dragapult is also immune to being faked out by a teammate next to Aerodactyl because of its ghost typing. I've also noticed a decline in Charizard Y usage. Previously the most popular Mega that you would see in half the games that you play, I feel like recently, just anecdotally speaking, I have seen far less Charizard Y, which is kind of crazy. since it seems so fundamentally powerful, but I think at least part of the reason why this is happening is because of the rise of Aerodactyl. Initially, Aerodactyl wasn't that popular, now it is very popular. This is terrible news for Charizard Y, who is slower and threatened lethally by Rock Slide. Now, my opinion is that Charizard Y will bounce back and figure out ways to defeat Aerodactyl and return to its former glory. But it is interesting, isn't it, that things could shift so quickly, and the Pokemon widely regarded as the #1 Mega in the game could decline so much because of one little shift like the rise of Aerodactyl. Does anybody else feel a bit bad for Mega Charizard Y, bullied out of the metagame for being too powerful? Everyone's out to get him. He's too good for his own good. He was so prominent that every single team is now countering Mega Charizard Y. Even though no one's running him anymore, they're still running 5 Mega Charizard Y counters, just in case he shows up again. Just in case he decides to rear his head and return to the playground, there's 5 things that threaten his life on every team. Very tragic stuff, truly. Up next we have Mega Scovillain, who is having a bit of a moment right now, and making me look stupid as usual. I recently made a video ranking all of the Mega Pokemon in Champions, and I put Mega Scovillain pretty low on the list, near the bottom, due to all of its disadvantages, average stats, high commitment of 1 per game Mega Stone, and that sort of thing. But in my defense, I did say that Mega Scovillain's incredible ability Spicy Spray had potential. I did say that. Spicy Spray is an ability that will inflict burn on absolutely anything that attacks you, whether it's a physical or special attack, whether it makes contact or not. Anything that attacks Mega Scovillain will get burned. This is one of the best abilities I've ever heard of, and it's on an otherwise terrible Pokemon. And it seems like this ability is actually good enough to give Mega Scovillain more merit than we thought. Mega Scovillain has the move Rage Powder, which is perfect here. Rage Powder attracts the enemy to target the user, and so by forcing the opponent to target it, they will be burned with 100% certainty if they use an attack. Even though Mega Scovillain's defenses are not amazing, you can just invest bonus stats into defenses to get the most out of this ability. And the typing is not so bad defensively here. Scovillain is weak to rock-type attacks, flying-type attacks, and poison-type attacks. And these weaknesses sort of work well with the ability. Yes, you're vulnerable to the very common move Rock Slide, but pretty much anything using Rock Slide is going to be a physical attacker that doesn't want to be burned. So even in the case where you take a lot of damage from a Rock Slide, you will be burning a physical attacker like an Aerodactyl or a Garchomp, which is a high value thing to do. So that's nice. Scovillain is under fire from flying type attacks like Hurricane from Pelipper or Mega Dragonite. But to be honest, Hurricane is not the most common thing on the planet. There are prominent users of it, but the most common flying type attacker right now is probably Aerodactyl with dual wing beat. And as mentioned earlier, Aerodactyl doesn't really want to get burned. And what sucks about this for Aerodactyl is that dual wing beat is a 2-hit attack. So it will get burned on the first hit of dual wing beat, and then the second hit will do less damage as a result of being burned. Devastating. And then there's poison weakness. Sneasler doesn't really want to dire claw into you and get burned, and Sneasler has the most common poison type attack in the game. There are some unfortunate matchups for Scovillain, like the occasional Mega Glamora is a good matchup, I think, because it just threatens Scovillain lethally with Sludge Bomb or Power Gem, and isn't as worried about getting burned. Mega Gengar, also a bad matchup for Scovillain, since it can lethally Sludge Bomb and trap it on the field. Not worried about burn either. But you can see how Mega Scovillain is actually kind of effective. The things that are good against it aren't ubiquitous. And a lot of common things actually find Scovillain incredibly awkward to deal with. It sort of just sits there and is a deterrent for very common powerful concepts like clicking any spread move, especially Rock Slide. It is an effective redirector because if you attack it, it gets you burned. It's not the bulkiest thing on the planet, but with defense investment, it can survive a hit or two, and in the fast-paced doubles world, that is enough. And even if you're up against a bad matchup, Mega Scovillain can kind of just be a sponge to soak your hits, and a Mega Scovillain simply clicking Protect as it takes a Hurricane or something can be enough to destroy your opponent's momentum. Mega Scovillain just sitting there represents a threat, so the few things that can actually threaten it are inclined to target it, and Mega Scovillain can use that to its advantage. It's this bomb that has to be eliminated and diffused, you know? and in doing so it can attract hits to itself, and be more effective strategically than I ever expected, or most people ever expected. Now, don't get me wrong, Mega Scribbling is still flawed. Its poor stats and the commitment of having to Mega Evolve with it, and therefore not have any other good Megas, is not ideal. It is a weird way to use your Mega slot on a Pokemon that is a very effective redirector, but not really an explosive threat in its own right or anything. But it's certainly far better than I gave it credit for. Now, I will say, Mega Scribbling is itself benefiting greatly from the fall-off of Charizard Y. Because, if you think about it, Charizard Y is the ultimate Mega Scribbling defeater. It's a fire type, so it cannot be burned. It has Heat Wave, so it doesn't care about redirection, and Mega Scribbling is neutral to fire, but it still takes a massive amount of damage from the high special attack stab sun-boosted Heat Wave that Mega Charizard Y has up its sleeve. Mega Scribbling also can't threaten Mega Charizard Y with anything. It resists fire-type attacks and grass-type attacks. I guess it can get leech-seeded, but that's a bit slow, and Mega Scribbling is not really winning that exchange, is it? Mega Charizard Y, come back please, we need you. In your absence, things are happening that you wouldn't believe. Mega Scribbling is on the rise. Please return. Okay, I'll stop using Aerodactyl temporarily if you will come back and kill this stupid chili pepper that keeps burning all of my Pokemon and giving me serious grief. I think the moral of this story and the takeaway of the rise of Mega Scribbling is to not be so rude to Mega Charizard Y next time. Okay, you all said that he should leave and never come back. And now look what happened. Now Mega Scribbling is more effective in the metagame. And it's all your fault. You, viewer at home, it's your fault that this has happened. And I hope you take responsibility for what you've done here. Speaking of immoral Pokemon, I have noticed a bit of a rise in Hisui and Zoroark recently. Not only on the ranked ladder, but also in some tournaments we've seen Hisui and Zoroark pop up, online tournaments. And this is a Pokemon with genuine merit in a doubles context. Hisui and Zoroark is a normal ghost type, which is an amazing combo with incredible immunities. It's immune to ghost and fighting and normal type attacks. And it has the ability Illusion, which allows it to disguise as another Pokemon. It maintains that disguise until it takes direct damage from an attack. And there is some obvious value to this on a normal ghost type. You can disguise as something that is weak to fighting, for example, that might invite Sneasler to select close combat against it, but instead of being that Pokemon, you are in fact Zoroark the whole time, and this can afford you a free turn to select Nasty Plot and boost up. And after doing so, you can click a very powerful Hyper Voice, which is a normal type spread special attack that hits both opponents. Zoroark happens to be fairly fast, and has a great special attack stat of base 125, so the illusion is kind of perfect to afford you a free turn to do that, and start defeating the enemy. But the real value of Hisui and Zoroark is that it is immune to Fake Out, and it can disguise as something that might invite a Fake Out against it. Like a Whimsicott. It's usually common to try to Fake Out Whimsicott, because it breaks its focus sash, and it's usually trying to do something useful like set Tailwind. So if you disguise as a Whimsicott, it's the perfect crime. They'll click Fake Out, it's not effective at all because you're immune to normal type attacks. And then, woohoo, you get the big nasty plot and you're off to the races. Now, I do think it is immoral to use the face and soul of another person, to use their visage for your own underhanded means. I think that's very spiritually bankrupt. And even though Zoroark Hisui may have a fleeting advantage from this trickery in the current life, in the next life Zoroark Hisui will pay dearly for this crime and this affront. But despite that, this can be an effective strategy on the right team. And even if you don't bring the Zoroark Hisui, there's a mind game about whether you will or won't. The opponent will be doubting themselves and be frightened that any Pokemon could be Zoroark Hisui, and that if they Fake Out against the wrong fella, they're in real trouble. There's a bit of nuance to who you choose to disguise as. Maybe you don't disguise as something too obvious, because it might appear like Hisui and Zoroark. Maybe you disguise as the second most obvious guy and then trick them. There's much strategy to be had with this. There are some disadvantages to Hisui and Zoroark though. The extreme frailty of this Pokemon means that it dies to an absolute slight breeze. Its bulk is nearly non-existent, with 55 HP and 60 in each of the defenses. Hisui and Zoroark is incredibly vulnerable to a simple Incineroar, selecting a Dark-type attack. It is extremely common Pokemon. So if they call out who you're disguised as, and sometimes it is kind of obvious, if they call it out, oftentimes you are just deceased. Also, Hyper Voice is not the most amazing offensive option in the game. It is good, it's stab, it hits a lot of things neutrally, and pretty high power for a spread move. But a lot of things resist normal. The Tyranitar matchup I think is a bit horrendous for Hisui and Zoroark, as they often carry a Focus Sash to make up for the bulk, and Sand sort of erases that from existence. I also think Hisui and Zoroark is vulnerable to just a lead that clicks a spread move, you know? Because often they're going to do that whether you're Zoroark or not, like an Aerodactyl clicking Rock Slide. It's often just good to click Rock Slide whether Hisui and Zoroark is disguising as something or not. And it covers both scenarios, as the Rock Slide will hit the guy, reveal it, or reveal that the guy's not Zoroark by hitting a different Pokemon. Zoroark is slower than Aerodactyl, and this is a bit of a disadvantage. I think the real value of this Pokemon is just having it in the team preview makes your opponent second guess themselves and have to make awkward plays to confirm the Hisui and Zoroark. That is inherently restrictive, and it can be used to your advantage strategically. Hisui and Zoroark also does have some cool options like Taunt, and an unexpected taunt can be game-winning. I got beaten once by a Zoroark Hisui that was disguised as a Slowbro and unexpectedly did a fast taunt. I wasn't even really thinking about Zoroark disguising as the Slowbro, but that got me, and that won them the game. Very embarrassing for Jim, but it happened, and I must reckon with that, and I must accept it. I also think Will-O-Wisp is a great option on this. You can randomly burn something that wasn't expecting to be burned, because you've disguised as a guy that can't inflict burn. That's quite smart. And Icy Wind is cool too. Spread move, ice type coverage, and speed control all in one. Can also be unexpected because you are using illusions to disguise as others. Everything you do is unexpected because you're a trickster. Just be warned though folks, if you use this Pokemon you may incur a little bit of karmic debt due to the morally abhorrent nature of disguising as another person and taking their likeness for deceitful means. You may spend some time in Purgatorio at the end of days. I just want to warn you. Up next, I have been noticing a bit of an uptick in Sableye usage, which is kind of fun. Sableye is another option for a prankster support Pokemon with some unique flair to set it apart from the other prankster support Pokemon in the game. Now, of course, Sableye does have dreadful stats. Truly dreadful stats, but if there's any archetype of Pokemon that can make up for poor stats in doubles, it's probably a prankster support Pokemon. If you have priority and you can do at least one or two useful things, it doesn't matter as much if you die quickly. And Sableye stands out from other Pokemon in this area with its excellent typing. It might actually have the best typing for a prankster support Pokemon in the game. It is a dark ghost type, a typing with many advantages. First of all, being a dark type means you're actually immune to enemy prankster moves. Dark types cannot be affected by status moves that are boosted by prankster. And that is really nice. A Whimsicott can't Encore you. A Meowstic cannot Thunderwave you. This is valued. And as a ghost type, you are immune to Fake Out, which is incredibly valuable. Fake Out is one of the most common forms of crowd control in competitive doubles, with its 100% flinch chance. Every other prankster user is vulnerable to the disruption of Fake Out. Whimsicott usually has to protect turn 1 to avoid the Fake Out. Meowstic is under fire from it, but not Sableye. Sableye doesn't have to worry about that at all. Sableye also has Encore, which can be an incredible punish to many different things. Encoring an enemy into Fake Out forces them to struggle, actually, which is devastating for them. There are many applications for Encore. It's a move that forces the target to repeat the last move they used for 3 turns. It's going to really disrupt things. And Sableye, beyond that, just has a pretty outstanding utility move pool with a lot of different options. It has both Light Screen and Reflect. You can run both if you like, maybe just one that's relevant. These are great moves that shield your team from incoming damage. Reflect shields your team from physical damage, Light Screen from special damage. Sableye has Taunt with priority on it, incredibly valued to deny the enemy from using any non-attacking moves. You can deny Tailwind from an Aerodactyl, Trick Room from various things. There is much to appreciate about having Taunt. Sableye has Will-O-Wisp with priority on it to burn something, which is absolutely outstanding. This can ruin the life of any physical attacker in an instant. Sableye has Stab Foul Play, which is very good. It doesn't have a good offensive stat at all, but Foul Play is nice because it's a 95 power dark type attack that uses the target's attack stat in damage calculation rather than your own, so you can punish a strong physical attacker by hitting them with huge damage via foul play, not needing an offensive stat of your own. Very useful. Sableye also has access to both relevant weather moves, Rain Dance and Sunny Day, so depending on what your team is, Sableye could be a nice secondary weather setter. I believe Whimsicott only gets Sunny Day, but Sableye gets both Rain Dance and Sunny Day. I actually think this Pokemon is very underrated. All of this utility, the typing, everything about it just seems pretty incredible and very flexible too. It can really fill gaps with all of this, and I would imagine that it's incredibly useful much of the time. It just does so much fun stuff. I would actually predict that maybe Sableye usage will rise even further. It is suffering from its poor stats, of course, and it is vulnerable to fairy-type damage, which is not very good in a world where Floette is so common, but that is also the only type it's weak to, and its typing is kind of nice in that it can't be hit by close combat from Sneasler, it's not so worried about neutral dark moves from Incineroar. The typing is actually really helping out in the bulk department, because you have so few weaknesses, only a single weakness in fact, which means with defensive investment, Sableye can often at least live one important hit. I think this is a cool Pokemon, a great gap filler, with pretty outstanding utility. If Pokemon were speculative assets and I could invest into them, perhaps I would buy some Sableye while it's low. I have high hopes for the rise of Sableye in the future. I hope I don't look stupid for saying so. But this Pokemon seems solid to me, and I have been noticing a trend in the increased use of Sableye. Up next is the Mammoth. The Mammoth is pretty cool, and is kind of an anti-meta guy right now. Mamoswine happens to be one of my favorite Pokemon, so I enjoy the fact that it's viable. Mamoswine in Doubles utilizes the ability Oblivious, which grants an immunity to Intimidate, most importantly of all. It also offers Infatuation immunity and Taunt immunity. These aren't really as relevant, but the Intimidation immunity is huge. It means you don't get your attack lowered by Incineroar or Arcanine, Hisuian, or Gyarados, or anybody. Nobody can intimidate this Mammoth. He is oblivious to your attempts to instill fear into his soul. The Mammoth is effective as a Choice Scarf Pokemon, because with a Choice Scarf equipped, it can outrun Sneasler by a little bit, without even needing a Jolly Nature, so it can still run an Adamant Nature and outrun Sneasler. And this is huge, because it one-shots Sneasler easily with Earthquake or high horsepower, and threatening this one-hit KO means it's not worried about the close combat. In fact, it might trick the Sneasler into thinking it's safe and hit them with a auspicious high horsepower for the one-hit KO. So a Choice Scarf Mamoswine kind of automatically threatens the very common Sneasler lead, Incineroar as well. They can fake it out, but they are worried about the fact that you're Intimidate-proof and you have a stab ground move. And your secondary typing is Ice, which is highly useful. Icicle Spear can be used to destroy Garchomp's entire life. You outrun Garchomp easily with the Scarf, and this bypasses Yachi Berry because the first hit will activate the Yachi Berry. They will eat it, and then they will no longer have a berry to shield from the incoming hits of Icicle Spear since it's a multi-hit move. This will also cover Focus Sash, and what's nice about Icicle Spear also is that it does not make physical contact and will not activate Rough Skin, which is nice against Garchomp who has rough skin, as it is a pointy shark. The Mammoth does not concern himself with things like this, and is not bothered by that at all. It keeps its distance strategically. Icicle Spear also nice against Aerodactyl, actually, because the multi-hit will hit super effectively and power through the Focus Sash. Now, unfortunately, Mamoswine cannot quite outrun Aerodactyl with a Choice Scarf and an Adamant Nature. Would have to run a Jolly Nature to actually outrun Aerodactyl, which might be too much of a sacrifice on the attack. You can do that if you want, just for that matchup, but the good news is that Aerodactyl can't really threaten Mamoswine very effectively. They might get a Tailwind up, which is high value, but they will perish if they get hit by an attack. And Mamoswine generally quite good offensively. It's a nice Earthquake spammer if you happen to have ground immune allies like a Rotom Wash or Charizard or Corviknight or fellas like this, Aerodactyl even. You can spam Earthquake very effectively with Mamoswine. Access to Rock Slide also auspicious. Complementary coverage, generally good spread move in the Doubles world. High horsepower is good if you don't want to defeat your own allies with Earthquake and become a horse temporarily to target individuals with ground type damage, as horses do. Or you can go Icicle Crash if you prefer, for a more consistent ice type option that is not multi-hit and therefore not as risky. I really like this set. It actually fits well in the metagame. Mamoswine has a fairly decent natural bulk thanks to its high HP. I like that it's just faster than crucial things after a scarf. Can afford to run adamant. Pretty effective Pokemon right now in my opinion. It is vulnerable to getting faked out because a choice scarf Pokemon cannot carry protect, so that's a drawback to it, but I think it has enough going for it here and it fits in well enough to be considered a rising star in my eyes. But perhaps a little bit of an underrated pick right now. Up next is Mega Aggron, who has proven to be a far more solid Mega than anyone expected. This is one of the strongest Megas defensively speaking. Mono Steel is a great typing, simple with few weaknesses and incredible resistances, and the ability Filter helps immensely reducing super effective damage against you. Mega Aggron's stats are of course pretty outstanding, especially its enormous 230 base defense and 140 base attack. Body Press is kind of a massive buff for this Mega. Back in Gen 6 and 7 this move didn't exist. Now Mega Aggron can actually use its enormous defense stat for insane damage output, as Body Press is a fighting type attack that deals damage based on your defense stat. You can boost it even further with Iron Defense, and Heavy Slam, also a great move in this metagame. A steel type attack that deals damage based on how heavy you are compared to the target. Mega Aggron a very heavy Pokemon, and steel coverage is very useful in a world where Mega Floette is so popular, and Mega Gardevoir as well. Mega Aggron is surprisingly flexible. It fits on a few different team styles. It's nice on Trick Room because of its low 50 base speed and its actual surprising offensive potency. Mega Aggron is viable on Rain teams, I think, because Rain reduces the damage of fire and you are otherwise weak to fire. That's useful for you. It works well on Sand teams because it ignores sand. It works well on Snow teams because it benefits immensely from Aurora Veil to shield it from incoming damage, enhancing its bulk even further. It's a solid win condition with Iron Defense, but even if you don't click Iron Defense, it sits there, tanks hits like a champion, and represents such a threat. Body Press effectively ignores Intimidate and threatens lethal force against Incineroar, King Gambit, Tyranitar, etc. This has proven to be more than just a gimmick or a niche Mega. I think it's actually a viable and solid one. Body Press being the most significant buff for it, and also the metagame surrounding it just working in its favor. It's fairly low power level, so it can take hits very well and dish out good damage without being threatened by too much. And the things it is threatened by can be handled well by allies and built around to play to its strengths. And finally, I think that Hatterene has been on the rise a little bit as an alternate Trick Room setter to the Giraffe. The Giraffe is the most popular Trick Room setter in the game right now. It provides your team with immunity to priority moves, which is huge, denies Fake Out. The Giraffe has the bulk necessary to set Trick Room reliably. And it even has Imprison, which is useful utility to deny Trick Room from an enemy matchup in scenarios where that's useful. But Hatterene is a good alternative with some merit of its own. The big one is that Hatterene is more of a threat in Trick Room than Farigiraffe is. So if Hatterene manages to get a Trick Room off, this guy itself is actually incredibly threatening already without having to switch in a different threat. The Giraffe is alright, but it's not the scariest thing on the planet or anything. It might do some damage with Hyper Voice or Twin Beam or Psychic. It can be useful with Helping Hand, but usually Giraffe is an enabler of others rather than a threat on its own right. Hatterene is a self-sufficient threat. It sets Trick Room and then immediately, with its low 29 speed and massive 136 base special attack, can start shooting off a spread Dazzling Gleam for incredible damage immediately. And Hatterene does have nice coverage on top of this. Mystical Fire is useful fire coverage. Always nice to have that. If you're able to fit Psychic Terrain on the team, Expanding Force kind of goes crazy. If you have like a Meowstic or somebody else that sets Psychic Terrain, this could go a little bit insane. That's a bit more conditional and hard to build around, but it is an option. And of course, you can run Calm Mind on this, use it as a bit of a sweeper. You can run Psychic Damage, Psychic or Size Shock are both good. And what else is nice about Hatterene is that it has Magic Bounce. Usually not an amazing ability in doubles, far more of a singles ability for its ability to block hazards. Hazard's not really a thing in doubles as much, but if Magic Bounce is useful anywhere in doubles, it's on a Trick Room setter. The immunity to Taunt and Encore is huge, and you do not have to worry about being taunted by anybody. You're completely immune to that. You do not have to carry a mental herb, and that frees up the item slot to run something that's a bit more useful to your life, like a Kasib berry, for example, to shield you from a ghost move, or the Fairy Feather to increase your Dazzling Gleam damage, or a Focus Sash even, to ensure that you live any incoming hit and get the guaranteed Trick Room. That's also good. So Magic Bounce is basically a built-in mental herb that's permanent, complete immunity to getting taunted or encored, or statused if that's relevant. So that's fantastic here. Hatterene works well alongside the Giraffe. It's probably not as amazing as a Soul Trick Room setter. It does have some drawbacks. It's vulnerable to more types, as it is weak to Steel and to Poison and to Ghost. And the Giraffe completely blocking Fake Out is just so much more consistent and helpful at reliably setting Trick Room. But Hatterene is a good alternative Trick Room setter in certain matchups, because if they lead with a Taunt user for the Giraffe, you'd have the Taunt immune Hatterene in the back, and that is highly auspicious for you. And as mentioned, it's a more self-sufficient threat if you're up against a team where you think you can justify leading with the Hatterene and get a Trick Room off against what they have. It can be incredibly rewarding, and Hatterene itself is highly threatening. Trick Room is a hyper-aggressive playstyle, and you want to do as much damage as you can in those limited Trick Room turns, so it helps that as soon as Hatterene sets Trick Room, it's already an incredibly threatening Pokemon. So those are some cool Pokemon that I've noticed rising in usage, proving to be better than expected. Some more than others, but just general upwards trend for these fellas. What did you think of my choices? Am I missing any? Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and thank you very much for watching.